all in a
TV and the program Between God and Us. And so far, we have been getting a lot of positive, a couple of negative, but that is to be expected, I guess, with the topics that we are covering. But we have been getting a lot of support for the programming that we are bringing to you, and some of you had questions. So today, I have here with me Master Eric, once more, sitting, having conversations on everything that exists between God and us. So Master Eric, you want to say hello?
First of all, I want to say Sitaram, Assalamu Alaikum, and Sairam. Good evening, everyone. Episode 7. Correct?
Episode 7. 7 already.
We're getting there.
Yeah. So, well, I thought it was an ideal time to bring up some of the questions people had, and some of the feedback. Not so much questions, but, comments. And
I haven't had access to them yet, so
yeah.
Go ahead.
So one of the first questions someone had was, well, what are you? What would you define yourself as?
As a joke, I'm a human.
Yeah.
No.
But like pundit,
No,
priest?
I'm not a pundit. I am a licensed minister, yes,
Okay.
in Christianity. But then I've studied the 10 years. I've studied many different beliefs. And that's when I got the title of master. But to be honest with you, I had the same question probably about 29 years ago. And when I used to go to temples and I was trying to take people's pain out with my hands, and it was working, people was asking me the same question: how do we address you? So then in meditation, I asked God. I said, Baba, people are asking, what am I? How would I address myself to the people? And he stated, you are a dasa. So I said, okay. He said, that title cannot be given by man. So it was ironic. The next day, I was in one of the major puja stores in Trinidad. And I always like to get good scriptures, good books, to always learn. I'm wanting to broaden my horizon. And when I flipped open the book, the first paragraph that was on the second page said, those who are picked by God are called dasa. And the English translation is servant of the Lord. So that's what I really class myself as. I'm a servant of God. Titles doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
You don't see me putting my doctorate degree in front of my name. You don't see me doing all these things in front of my name.
Okay.
Why? That doesn't make who you are. And so I just like the name Master Eric. I'm not going to put my credentials in front of it. Nothing like that. Because to me, that has no importance of what you do.
Okay. And just to be clear, okay, so you're well researched in Christianity.
I try to be.
And well researched in Hinduism, obviously.
Try to be.
Islam, you did a fair amount of research.
Yes.
But also in other religions that people might not be aware of. Like, for example, in the satsang that you did, that I was at, you chanted Sumerian mantras.
But what I did, and some people were confused, because when I did the chant, yes, Sumerian.
Right.
But to identify the deities that I was putting in, I used the names they were familiar with.
Right.
Okay, so I had Bhadrakali, Kali, I had Shambhu. All of them were in there. I was invoking all of them inside there. So, yes. Now, how else, Omkar, if you don't try to research and learn other beliefs and other languages, how could I help those people? if you don't understand the culture, how do they think that, why did they think the way they do? Why do they believe in the way they do? And then when you research, I've done movies on it. You can go on YouTube. There's a lot of similarities across the board. You know, and this is where people, they're missing that. They don't understand that because they're not taught that. But there's so many similarities. It's like one source was almost dictating to all at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, now that I think about it, they have, I didn't do the depth of research that you do, right? But just like online reading. So for example, like Rudra, I believe, is supposed to be the deity that was before modern day Shiva. So he's not Shiva exactly.
No, he's actually a form.
A form of Shiva.
And you got many forms.
Yeah.
Like when I do Shiva puja for people, I have the main form. Then I have the 8 forms in front, just to recognize some.
Yeah.
There are so many forms. This is what people don't understand. And if you look at Kalbhairav,
Right.
you got Astangi, you've got all these different ones. Look at Mother Kali.
But the image
You
I
have
saw,
so many different forms.
but the image of Kalbhairav is a form of Shiva or what?
He's Shiva in the angry form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so
But he's not one of the main deities on the Veda
okay.
when you do the puja.
All right, well, we digress in here because it's question and answer.
Yeah.
So I now realize, we kind of getting
Drifting off?
drifting off into bigger topics. So,
Right.
So the second question, not really a question, but somebody called the station anonymously. So no caller ID. He didn't say his name. We don't.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, well,
That's okay.
I guess he didn't want anybody knowing who he is, right?
Okay.
I guess.
That's fine.
So he was saying, the name for the program shouldn't be the between God and us. It should be the untold truth because you're not telling the truth. Now,
Well,
it was one of the reception at the office took the call because if it was me, I'd say, well, what is the truth? Well,
no.
present it,
No, it's not that. I don't get mad at people like this.
Right.
For one, how do we know what I said that was not accurate if he doesn't make the subject?
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny he said the untold truth.
Well,
Because that's my podcast. That's everything else because I'm talking about the truths that people don't talk about.
Right.
So we're talking about the untold truths.
Yeah.
Right? But no, everybody has the right to an opinion. But in order to clarify, we would have to get a little more information from that individual.
Yeah.
So we could, we could have a conversation or we can tell him where we got the reference and everything else.
Yeah.
I'm open to that.
Yeah. Because then...
You can't please everybody in the world though, Omkar.
No, but we could have a conversation with them.
I'm open with
We
that.
could probably invite them if they want to call in, if they want to come into the program, something like that.
I'll be willing for that.
Because what I think about, probably not him, but people like that is they were always told something, or they read probably some piece of information in something that was translated and transliterated, and they think, okay, well, I know this because I read this here at one point in time, but there wasn't any real research done into the depths of it. Because I think, well, you covered already, and we have to get into it, where scriptures have been altered,
Right.
where things have been omitted for particular reasons. And so we can be sure that if I read something from one source in one particular way that was far from the original source, like I can be sure that is the truth, especially if it was translated, because the translator might have made a mistake as well. So I think that's something we have to get into.
I think we should and that's a very deep topic.
Yeah.
And then we have to deliver it in the proper way.
Yeah.
So people aren't offended. We have to show them where it's referenced from, when was it found, location where it was found. It's just like 4 years ago, they found not far from where the Dead Sea Scrolls was actually found, another set of scrolls. And it was the book of Judas. And when the big religious bodies started translating, right? And they said, that book is not coming out.
Okay.
Because it was another view of how Jesus was with Judas. And that Judas was handpicked. And when you really start looking at it, you know, when you go through around Trinidad and other countries, they really ridiculed Judas. Some of them even hold up a little, it's a dummy doll they put up, and they give him licks down here in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing is, Judas was picked to do that. And it was intentional.
Yeah.
Because if it didn't, would the crucifixion even happen? See, this is what people don't...
What do you mean by Jesus?
No. If Judas didn't do what he'd done...
Oh, I mean the whole scheme of things.
The scheme of
Oh,
things.
okay. All right, cool.
Would the purpose of the crucifixion, dying for our sins, happen?
No.
See, sometimes God picks certain individuals to do certain things to get something accomplished. And this is what this new scroll that was found was actually elaborating on.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should have the view of seeing it. But they're trying to keep it under wraps.
Yeah.
But the question is, why?
Yeah.
You know, I believe that no matter what knowledge is out there, I believe that every individual should have access. And then come up with their own conclusion.
Yeah.
Whether it's right for them, if it's not for them. You know, and a lot of people, and the person that called in probably, remember even during the sets, and I even said it during the first show here, I said there's going to be people out there saying, oh, he's talking off the cuff.
Yeah.
I expect that. Why? A lot of things aren't being taught.
Yeah.
So we can't get aggravated or anything about that. It's just that the people probably don't know.
Yeah.
And we have to expect that sometimes.
Yeah, because, well, especially for a program like this, but programs like this, there are many others, where you are doing something that is going against what is considered the established truth. Then obviously you'll get people, like you said one time, I wouldn't sway them. Obviously, some people might, fight back, tooth and nail. Because remember, people have a belief that anchors them in life. Whether it's right or wrong, but it anchors them. And then to come with some information that uproots that, you'll get some pain in the uprooting process. I think that's what people, they might come defensive.
But see, Omkar, everybody out here, let me tell you something. I think certain individuals and certain groups really underestimate the common person. The common people are not stupid. They have a tremendous amount of common sense. And they're educated to where they're at now.
Yeah.
So, if you think about it, when you went to school, I'm a lot older than you, right?
Yeah.
What I was taught, I would say 80% of it was proven wrong, especially when it comes to science.
Okay, right.
Right? We were told there was barely 9 planets back then. We didn't know nothing about other Milky Ways. Now, it sounds like I'm a dinosaur. You know what I mean? But I am a lot older. So as we progress through time, what we thought we knew is going to be proven different.
Yeah.
And maybe not totally wrong, but different. Like more to add on, more information to expand on. Not just the little information that I had about the universe when I was growing up.
As we're on that topic, right? So, from what you learned about the universe from scripture, regardless of which scripture, Christian, Islam, Hindu, whichever, Sumerian, So what you learned in school has been proven wrong, but from what you have seen in
Not
script,
proven wrong.
well,
It's
changed.
proven that there's a lot more to it.
Yeah.
But back then, we didn't have the technology to expand and know there's thousands and maybe tens of thousands or a million Milky Ways
Yeah.
in the universe. You know, so we can't knock it, but what I'm saying, people out here should be prepared because there are going to be changes. There's going to, not changes, but there's going to be more expansion on the knowledge. There's going to be more things that's going to be found
Yeah.
by archaeology.
But the question I want to ask is that from what you knew as a child growing up, but being taught even by religious leaders and stuff, and what you are reading in scripture and what is being found, is it that the scriptures are more factual than a lot of people give it credit for? Like it's a lot of people take scriptures as philosophy and metaphors, and the people who wrote them were low tech, so they didn't know anything. But do you think that the scriptures have a lot of information that is actually factual?
I think there's a lot of it in there that is very factual based.
Yeah?
Not all,
Okay.
but some. Now, when we look at things, that's why, do you notice I really don't stress on one belief? I encompass all. The reason is, I believe no matter what belief you're in, it's very important. Every person needs a base to work from,
Right.
to get ready to expand, or to get ready to, what you say, spread your wings and fly and start gathering more. So it's critical. But in the satsang, and also in our show here, I also talked about, I was always instructed in meditation to, he said, tell the people, get your book. So that book could be the Quran, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita. It could be the Torah. It could be, you can name it. Read your book. Try to understand the book as much as you can. Then close the book. And what they're saying, don't keep going back in the book. You need to start your spiritual path. You need to go beyond the book and start expanding your knowledge, your vision, right? Because if we keep going back and spinning, you're not concentrate on your path. Now, what the path is you take what you learned from your scriptures and you start to apply it to your life and start walking that path. And not just do everything that everybody else does in the world. But humans have a tendency to keep wanting to try to prove something out of the book. Why do we have to prove something? You're going to prove it when you walk it. Omkar, the work you do, you don't have to brag about the work you do. The work is going to talk for you. The same thing in spirituality. You don't have to keep trying to tell everybody what you think you know. Just do it. Walk it. Be it. That is more of an example to society than talking any day. What we're trying to do here is just give out information. I'm not going to be spinning top on mud just in one scripture. Why? I wouldn't be benefiting the viewers that are watching because you just don't have Hindus watching this program. So I'm recognizing all beliefs in almost every program. And it shows a balance. So when you really look at it, then I'm going to throw a spinner on you here in a minute. When you really look at it, and I mentioned it to you before, if everybody was the same, so say you, Omkar, Sometimes I know you get kind of irritated at some things that people do. Everybody does. And you're thinking, oh gosh, boy, can they change? But then in reality, if God made everybody exactly the same, so everybody you're seeing on the street is Omkar, they're an exact replica of you, this world would be boring. And it was purposely built this way. I said before, God is the perfect architect when he designed and built the universe, not just Earth. But here on Earth, there are people that look different than us. They talk different than us. They believe different than us. And this is all over the world in over 250 countries. So why do you think God did this? What do you think, his goal or his purpose? Why he made everything diverse like this in the world? And the reason was, remember I stated before, this earth is our testing and learning ground. So what would be part of the learning? Would it be to see if we could all get along in harmony, not judge each other, not put down each other, try to understand why they think the way they do? And we could live in a balance and harmony society in the world. But man has intervened, and man has segregated everything from being territorial to their language structure, everything, right? So my question is, from what you hear today, what I hear, and your crew and everybody else, are we living that? Are we passing that test? Or are we falling into the valley of the ruins? This is what people have to really look at. Because I'm a firm believer that everyone on this earth is a child of God. And everybody on this earth, regardless of who they pray to or how they pray, is still a child of God. And I can prove it. The way I can prove it, do you think genuine souls that reside inside of us, in each one of us, no matter who we are, there's different places to get souls? No. They're all a particle of God. So we all are technically brothers and sisters. So man needs to step out of the way and start letting the people show that we could live in harmony and peace and perfect balance. Yes, there'll still be some disagreements. But don't you think there would be less conflicts in the world? Less problems in the world? If people started to go in this direction? One more thing I want to prove. Children, let's say they're small, from 4 to 9, 4 to 10. They're innocent. Them children are innocent. And you know, I really saw this in Trinidad and Tobago since I've been here. You'll see kids playing in the yard. A little Chinese boy, a little Hindu, a little black boy. Do you know those little children don't even look at the difference in color? And they get along great. So they're setting the example for us adults, where racism, being biased, being a hypocrite, which are all sins. And in the religious faith, it's always been about territorial. From the kingdom sectors to, occupy in different countries, want to expand your kingdom. And then that kingdom, they would have to comply once they're taken over to the way they ran theirs. So you just took their total belief off. But every spiritual icon that I could research never talked about that, Omkar. Never talked about it. It was all about loving thy neighbor, helping thy neighbor. And even in Christianity, that's part of the 10 Commandments. We're not doing it. We're judging, we're condemning. Well, first of all, that's another commandment in the Bible. Thou shalt not judge. Do you know how many sins we're doing every day? And nobody's questioning it. The first thing that would have happened in my church when I grew up, if my preacher started preaching like that, my dad or any of the high deacons of the church, remember there's always deacons of the church to manage balance, make sure everything's going good, they would have pulled his socks up. Because that's not what Jesus stood for. But nobody now is standing up. Everybody's like that little dog on the dashboard in the car when you hit a bump. They're like this, right? No. So I just think that we need to start loving, merging. You could still have your different belief. But when you really look at the beliefs, and I think you're right, we need to pick 2 at a time and do comparisons. Or I could do 6 at a time, but the depth of the conversation wouldn't go as much because we're going to actually work with 6 different views. But we're going to show the common factor. The common factors are very important when you cross-reference scriptures. So the racism and everything has to stop. We need to merge and be one together.
So as you talk about similarities and cross-referencing, I remember one time I went to a mosque and they have this picture. I don't know if it's an official picture, but it was in the mosque, where they show, basically there's a tree and they show all the prophets are like branches on the tree. And Jesus Christ is one of the prophets.
Correct.
According to the Muslims. Mm-hmm. So the Prophet Muhammad is the last prophet. Mm-hmm. But even like John the Baptist, I don't know, I just guess.
They recognize Abraham and everybody.
Right, and Moses,
correct,
according to Muslims, was a prophet. Right. And then even the Hindus say, well, the 3 wise men came from India, took the baby Jesus to India and his mother and father with them to India, where he was trained in yoga, whatever form of yogic discipline.
Well, see, this is one thing, and I don't want to cut across, but this is one statement that Christians will not acknowledge.
No.
Okay? But there will be a program coming up.
Yeah.
I just need to get legal advice.
Okay.
And when I get the legal advice, we have the exact places he went to. Mm-hmm. We have the documents where you have to write in when you go into the temples. You also have to have your footprints, right? It also stated how long and where he went. Now, I don't know why the Christians don't want people to know or even think that he went to India. Because, and I want to give just a little teaser out.
Yeah.
In there, he went to one monastery.
Yeah.
For 6 years. Documented.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, what's embarrassing about that? That means the icon of your belief went there. He didn't try to change the Hindu belief. Right? And then you're going to see some things he did not agree with. Okay? And it's all documented. So I can't understand why this was kept away. Because even the common person that reads the Bible, just like me when I was small, you're going to sit there and you read, and it's very informative from the time he's born clear up to when he's 12 years old. And then, boom, everything disappeared. There's nothing written about him again until when he came back. You know, and in my books, there's something wrong there. That's what I was thinking when I was young.
Yeah.
So that's when you really start reaching out and trying to get factual data on where was he? What was he doing? What was the purpose? Right? And it's very educational. And it has nothing to make Jesus Christ look bad at all.
Yeah.
It only made him look good.
Yeah.
And then he came back. You know, so I'd be glad to do that with you, but I just need clearance on some of the data and some of the issue to make sure it's okay to put out in the public.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, my point was more about the cross-referencing, like how you'll have a common figure across 3 major religions right now. Probably he even appears in other religions that I might not have done research on or read about, but you know, people will try to claim him. Like, you know, well, the reason Hindus bring it up is to say, oh, you know, well, we taught Jesus yoga or whatever, right? So then you're ignoring the uplifting, motivational, educational part of it, all in an effort just to say, okay, this is ours. Like that.
See, Omkar, this is one thing I get confused about every day.
Right.
I get cross-referencing before I answer this here.
Yeah.
In Hinduism, you have 7 realms. Mm-hmm. There's more, but they talk about 7 realms.
Okay.
And in each realm, there's 9 stages, right? They don't talk about that, but there's 9 stages. So when you talk about the 7 realms, and then you start looking at the different hells, let's say from the Garuda Puran, right? It lists 27 hells. But then, no, it lists, 14. 14 hells. And then it says there's 27 others, right? But when you take the math, and 9 times 3 is 27. And then you take the 3, that's 31. The math adds up. The 9 stages fulfills all the different hells. I did a movie on it. It's very informative, right? Now, in the Muslim faith, they have 7 realms. Okay, they believe in the 7 realms.
All right.
Now, cross-referencing. One extreme to the other. Now, they talk about crossing the river when you die. Cross-reference. Hindus, you have it. The Muslims, they have the bridge over the river.
Yeah.
And if you're a vile soul, you're going to fall off into the pit of fire. Right? But you have to cross. Right?
Okay.
Now you have the Mayans. And the Mayans talk about the river. Mm-hmm. The Egyptians. But also they talk about the Mayan twins. And we'll get into all of this, right? Because they had to fight the Lord of Death. Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to get into that. Why did they fight the Lord of Death? Then you have the Aztecs, the American Indians. So what I'm doing, I'm showing geographically. There was no telephone back then. There was no iPad. There wasn't no internet. How did the same basis exist in all beliefs? Mm-hmm. If there wasn't one source giving this to someone.
Yeah.
Right? But the practices of each one are a little different. Then peoples come to me and they say, Master, you know, the other day, because they class me as more Christian. I don't know why. Christians class me as more Christians, Hindu class me as more Hindu.
Right.
But they say, you know, I saw somebody doing a Hawan the other day. Boy, can they just stop praying to the devil? Right? This is the perceived, you know, when people drive by.
Yeah.
They think that, or they won't even partake in the parasite.
Yeah.
If you hand it to them, right? And so I looked at him and I said, but I'm confused. Why would you say that? And they say, because we're told that's praying to the devil. I said, but haven't you read in the Old Testament about Cain and Abel and also Abraham?
Yeah, I have a question about that, remember.
Okay, hold on. So then they say, oh, yes. Now, Cain and Abel and Abraham is also in the Muslim and Jewish and Christian. So they're all tied together, right? And I said, but didn't God ask Abraham to sacrifice his own son?
That's my question.
Right? And they said, they got kind of quiet, but then they said, yes. And I said, and in mid-stroke, Abraham was going to do it to prove his faith and trust in God. But right in mid-stroke, he stopped it. Right? Then you talk about Abraham, his son, and Cain and Abel. Now, before Cain killed Abel, they were doing offerings to God.
Yeah.
Fire offerings.
My question is...
One was going to give the sacrificial animal into one.
Right, that's my question.
And
That's how
one was doing the barley.
As you on it, explain it. Blood sacrifice.
Right.
The sheep and thing. I want to hear you on that.
So what I'm saying, so they were doing fire offerings to God.
Yeah.
And all through that time period, fire offerings were given.
Mm-hmm.
So who told them to stop? This is the question no one can answer, because nowhere in the scriptures where Jesus taught said that you shall stop the fire offerings to my Father. So it's man, again, Omkar, that got in the way and stopped. So that way, once in a while, the Christians would be given their fire offerings to God.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same mantras, but the actual act would be the same. Now, you're asking me, what is my take on sacrifice?
My thought on it is that story in the Bible is obviously a blood sacrifice. Mm-hmm. In the Hindu sense, remember, I'm Hindu base. So when I say that, I say, well, wait now, if you pray to God and you killing an animal and offering to God, that's by all technicalities a blood sacrifice. But happening the Muslims still do it, that is when they halal meat. And the Christians did it in the Bible, like it's documented. And even God wanted...
Even when they offer the cow.
Yeah.
You know, that's done when a child is young and born. They're sacrificing a cow.
Yeah, but God even asked for a human life.
Correct. To test Abraham.
Yeah, but...
That's his own flesh and blood. And would he obey and love God that much to do that?
But does blood sacrifice in this sense, it has a stigma.
Because man's made it a stigma.
Right.
They're looking at it as a negative. But when you look at it in spirituality, now...
That's not wait. A little disclaimer to the audience. We're not promoting it.
No.
I asking a question about it because
clarifying.
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it in Bible. I want to know. And he explained it. We're not promoting blood sacrifice.
Whatever people do, that's their free will of choice.
Right.
But I'm not saying it's my cup of tea.
Right.
And I know you like tea.
Yeah.
So I should say coffee. But what I'm trying to say is that even when you read the Devi Mahabharata, in there, page 226, paragraph 6.
Right.
It states, those who eat meat shall and may give sacrifice to the Devi, which is the highest offering you can give. So, when people teach, yes, you teach about being vegetarian, you teach about keeping your body clean, you start doing that. But then on the other hand, there's many other references saying that this is also a very high offering you could give. So there's been times when I've been in a temple and the pundit will say, you cannot reach God if you eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he took his little break, I would talk to him and I'll say, go reference this, because most pundits read this book.
Mm-hmm.
And when he read it, he went up and corrected himself. He said there are different sects within Hinduism.
Yeah.
And this is what they do. So he cannot say they cannot reach God.
Right.
You understand? You have to be balanced.
I think I remember hearing that.
Huh?
Somebody said that.
This is what I'm trying to tell you. There are pundits out here that know this.
Mm-hmm.
And spiritual leaders. Now, I'm not saying go out. Now, people look at it as killing an animal and offering that animal to God.
Right.
But the way it's written is where God states, you are giving back to him what he has given to you.
Right.
You are releasing the soul to him, not the body.
Right.
That's all it is. See, people have a big misconception
Right.
of what blood sacrifice is.
Right.
And then we're going to go into other shows deeper
Yeah.
of who might be the ones coming to receive it. Is it really the goddess herself?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it one of the masters? Who could it be? Okay. We're going to go in because each one has a hierarchy structure within themselves.
Okay.
And each Devi has attendants that work for them. So this is what we're going to get in. But what I'm saying, people, I do not promote it, but in reality, it's been happening from the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
It was requested, even in the Bible, of the people to do sacrifice with a sheep.
And just to clarify something, that's God requested that. That's not a deity or an angel
Correct.
requested it. Like
Correct.
God himself said.
Correct.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, but then as time came closer to us,
Right.
it just disappears.
Yeah.
And the question is, I'm trying to find it.
Is it something that they
Where
did?
was it said to stop?
Is it something that they did to kind of cut, like whoever trying to control people, then trying to cut that link by hiding certain things that are more powerful and just giving you like water?
The reason is, like kingdoms,
Yeah.
a lot of religious beliefs did not want, they wanted their belief to stand out differently. To where each one could say, this is the right belief. They wanted to get rid of all the similarities, or what we say cross-reference between. They wanted to get rid of that. So you could really identify easier what is different from the other one. Like the Psalms in the Bible. Now, when you look in the ancient scriptures of the Bible, not the Bible that we're reading today, and in that Bible, the Psalms, if you read the Psalms by itself, yes, you're reading it. Yes, you're adding it in your prayer. And that's very good, people. But where's the power of it? So then in the ancient scriptures, it is written that if you're saying, say, Psalms 91, you have to face north at a certain time. You have to wear white because Jesus' color is white. And you have to read it at 10 p.m. at night to start.
Okay.
They got rid of that. Why? That's too much like Hinduism. Direction,
I have a question.
color.
I have a question. If the scripture were written back then, how they know what is 10 p.m. in the night?
Huh?
How they know what is 10 p.m. in the night when the scriptures were written before clocks? This is like a thinking.
How did they know astrology when they didn't even have telescopes? See, this
Okay.
is what you have to look at.
No, I ask it because.
No, that's a very good question,
Yeah.
right? So time doesn't exist technically.
Right.
And the upper realms, they're beyond time. Time don't exist in the upper realms. The only thing man did was try to break down, which was the ancient sages, rishis and munis, right? They went into specifics. And I'll show it to you right after we get done with this show. It's so much in detail in math, high math, to where they could dictate and say, okay, this is the exact time difference between humans and God. And when you do learn that, Omkar, you will see if you pray to something, if you pray to God about something, and it took 6 months to get. In human time, we're like, God, boy, was he on vacation or what? Right? But the thing is, when you look at the time difference, and I'm not going to give it out yet, it's a blink of an eye. It's a nanosecond
For God.
for God in human time.
Yeah.
So we're impatient, right? Now, the translation of time between the older ages to now differed because the calculation of time back then was not the same as us. So why do you think Moses lived to be over 900 years?
The year was different in
the
that time.
timing is different,
Yeah.
right? So, did you notice when we did the satsang, anything that I do religious that deals with God or spiritual, did you notice I never had a watch on?
I noticed that.
I did because I told somebody to let me know the time because I don't have the watch
Okay.
to come off, right? I was told by them, when you do prayers,
Yeah.
you never have a watch on.
Okay.
Time don't exist. And if you're invoking a deity on the deity, and you're saying the prayers to the deity, but during the prayers you're like, how would that make you feel? You know, I want people to understand that what man has done is really, it's not the same as it is in spirituality. And we need to go back to our roots. I keep saying that. We need to start asking all the religious institutions these questions. Why? Just like the Howin. When did the Christians and who said it to stop the offering that God required? Now, Jesus was super important, but he came for the sins of the people. Right? He didn't say stop the Howin. He said, believeth in me, and you shall have eternal life. He didn't say stop it. He didn't say stop praying to his Father. And then the identification between him and God is really being torn up too. Now, in the family tree, the hierarchy tree of the Muslims, they look at Jesus, and this is where the big fight was. They look at Jesus as a prophet, not as the Son of God. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, they're taking offense to that, right? But even in the Jewish faith, they don't look as Jesus as the Son of God. That's why they crucified him in the first place, right? They looked at him like a prophet, like somebody that was well-known read, right? So do you see there's similarities, but there's differences across the board? The Egyptians, you have to cross the boat. And then you have to pay the pound pot, which is the boatman. So that's why when the Egyptians, when they used to die, they used to put 2 gold coins over his eyes to pay the boatman. There's so many similarities. Now, when you start studying all the hells within the ancient scriptures, and remember, each stage has 9, there's 27. There are even ice cold hells written. They can search it. Look in the Garuda Puran. It's all in there. Now, in ancient Africa, in their belief, some of the hells are cold hells. Not all fire. Even in the Mayans. So what I'm trying to say, do you see the similarities that are crossing? And then you brought it up probably about 35 minutes ago. I don't forget what you asked. What I'm trying to get at is you said a little bit that everybody is more or less acting like God is on their side. Well, from the beginning of modern man, that is exactly what's happening. Everybody thinks that God is only on their side. But when you read all the ancient scriptures, God states he loves everyone equal. And that he made everyone equal. So if he did that, how could we personalize God? So when you have a sports event, you'll see them huddle on both sides. Now they're both praying to God.
Yeah.
And now both sides are sitting there saying, we're going to win, guys. God's on our side. I want you to understand, you cannot personalize and framework God into one thing. Because he is everything. And this is where the misconception of, and I love the way we did this, the misconception between God and us. And it's everything. Everything is thrown in the middle between us and God. And the question is why? It should be a clear path. And this is when we start our classes next month. I hope more people will enroll to learn how to make that direct connection to God. Because that's all you need in life. If you're connecting straight with God, what other book would you need to read? Because all the scriptures are meant to help guide you to understand God. Hopefully to bring you to God. But the procedures aren't in it.
Okay. Even in the Gita, which is famously like an instruction manual.
It's an instruction manual. But there's still some things missing.
Okay.
And this is where when people take certain classes, you can take yoga for 15 years and not reach what some people will learn in 6 classes. 6 classes will be way above the ones that's been for 15 years. And you have to ask why. Because the techniques has been lost. Now we're having people do yoga with goats in the States. They'll have an actual goat beside you doing yoga. And all the Westerners, do not ask me, because I have not found a spiritual connection between a goat and a human for meditation. But Google it. You'll see it, right? It's a new fad going around. All I'm saying, people's trying always to try to find God. But like I made the statement in our first two programs, God's in us. He's just waiting for you to connect. And this is what everybody out here needs to understand. Religions, I said at the beginning, are important. You've got to have a base framework to go from. But then when we go further in depth, so if you want to make just one program just on Hindu or one program on Muslim, which I would love to do, because I want to go over the tasbih. What do you say in the tasbih? How do you rotate the tasbih? How do you flip the tasbih?
Yeah.
You know, there's so many things that aren't being taught. And I want to do it. Same with the marla in Hinduism. Half the people don't even know how to use it. Mm-hmm. I want to do it. Let them see it. You know, and show them what to do so it will benefit them at home.
Yeah.
There's so many things that, like I said the other day, we got over 4 years of information to bring out. And then as we go in depth in each one, then all the questions will pop up. Even from me. I want answers.
Yeah.
And they're good questions. And I'm going to see who can give us answers. And we might have a little prize for people who can give us answers. You know, because there is knowledge out here, Omkar.
Yeah.
Some of the older individuals in all these faiths, they do have some knowledge. Not the younger ones as much, the older ones. But they keep quiet.
Yeah. I had that was one of the questions, and we end up asking two questions. But one is why the highly spiritual, even the yogis that go up in the mountains, and they have these, they shun social activities, they shun society, they live by themselves, they perform spiritual practice, and they have no interest in community living or people or...
That is contamination.
Yeah.
Now, also, yogis go to the mountain and meditate.
Yeah.
What saved Muhammad? The mountain, a cave.
Right.
And he used to do praying in the mountain too.
Mm.
But when they were trying to come to kill Muhammad, all of a sudden when they went, a big spider web was over the front of the cave. So the people scratch their head and say, but I know he's in there. How could he be in there? Do you know how long it takes to form a spider? The web? Mm-hmm. There was no way he could have went in there. And they turned around and left.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, you're gonna start learning the Quran pretty soon. Right? But this is why it's so interesting. Because there's so much to learn. All the scriptures are written in parables.
Yeah.
And where the big gap and divide is in the interpretations. Mm-hmm. Each person will have their own interpretation. And this is what makes a big divide. So let me give you an example. If we went Sunday or Friday, it's better Friday.
All right.
And we go to 8 mosques. And then on Sunday, we go to 8 temples. And the next Sunday, we go to 8 churches. And let's say that each one was talking about the same discourse.
Right.
They'll all be different.
Okay.
From the interpretation.
Yeah.
And this is what's confusing people. Isn't there one big, genuine interpretation that we could have a guideline for? That's why right now, Omkar, we have 4,200 religions in the world. Over. Mm-hmm. Because everybody says this one wrong. I'm going to start my own church. Or I'm going to start my own temple. XYZ. Now, when they start, they rewrite the Bible. And it's going to be their version. Mm-hmm. This is why we're having so many different classifications of religion in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's hard for the young people to grasp.
Yeah.
There's no common factor. Nothing set to where they can grasp onto. And this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
We need to show them a common denominator between all. guess what? In the young minds in science today, that starts to make sense. And when you start compiling the information from each into the other, and they're sitting there saying, but what's really the big difference? And then they'll start knowing the only thing that's independent and has always stayed the same is spirituality, not religion. But religion is important for beginners, and it has to be. But Obkar, I know we've been talking. We didn't even plan on this show.
No.
We just went as we go. But there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts, and whys. This is what makes knowledge fun. So all you people out there, if you have questions, write Omkar, write me. You can email me at meuntoldtruths@gmail.com. Right? I'll respond. I'll also copy you. And whatever you have, copy, and let's share it. And let's start learning from each other. That's what it's all about. But it's been a pleasure being with you here tonight.
Yeah, same here. Always.
Right.
Ago, do you need that daily boost of inspiration? Check out Sankhya TV's website at sankhyatv.com and enjoy any day